got $1 million voice and a 2-bit brain. They may not put me in the Hall of Fame, but I got a reputation and a well-known name, and I like it. Now the folks back home might call me a flirt. It's been a mighty long time since I plowed in the dirt. Got pink and orange flowers on my turquoise shirt, and I like it. Yes, I like it. I like it fine. Keep on rolling the show.
It had been a business that was called Freight and Salvage.
It was on San Pablo, a couple of blocks north of University. It had been an old furniture consignment or used furniture store of some sort. I was left a small inheritance from my grandmother. Wasn't much, but you didn't need a lot of money back then. You could live for next to nothing. I just really liked folk music, and I had this money, and I wanted to do something that would have meaning to me. So I started in this venture.
I don't think Nancy had a very clear idea of what was going to happen at the Freight.
Had no idea what I was doing, had no background in music, really. Had no knowledge of the wonderful music community that was already existed in Berkeley and the surrounding areas. The business before me was called the Freight and Salvage, and I thought, what a wonderful name for gathering people from here and there. We were working on it very slowly. People would stop by and they'd say, what are you doing? Can I help you? Oh, and I'll do it for free. And that's when the volunteers started, actually. A couple of my very strong feelings were I did not like cigarette smoke. And also, I had issues with alcohol.
It was very exciting to play in a place that didn't have any smoke. Back then, that was a big thing, because most of the places you could play music were all bars, so you had to have all this smoke and drinking, and it was a different kind of, you were kind of the second thought over there in the corner playing music.
It opened in July of 1968, and we had this wonderful opening party. I have no idea where we got all the names.
Well, I was in a band, the Cleanliness and Godliness Skiffle Band. We were playing on the street, and we played it. We were a good jug band type of a group.
They had a lot of original music, and they were just great.
The first time I played at the Freight, that was a big deal, a big moment. It's friends, it's friends and people and fear of judgment. Yeah, everybody's judging you, but so what,
We had this huge kitchen. We used to do all of our own baking.
Before I played music, I made brownies back in the kitchen.
There were mostly women working in the kitchen, and they were mothers.
I worked with my girlfriend who had just had a baby, and she kept Ruby in a box under the table, and during performances she'd breastfeed so that Ruby wouldn't cry.
Early 70s sometimes we did some remodeling. We stuck the stage up in one corner of the front, and all the whole front was windows, and we covered it over with papers that they used to use for advertising. And over the years we found that the sun would hit it and it cracked the glass. So it took several times of having one of those panes replaced before we realized, oh.
I forget how long it took before Denny Abrams, bless his heart, offered to remodel it.
Denny Abrams, who's one of our great civic designers, lived in this funky cottage around the corner, and he decided it needed to be made into more of a place.
It was obvious it needed a stage and a proscenium and an entry.
He did this wonderful design, and we all worked on it and did the carpentry.
I was a builder, so I just organized the crew and built it out with funky recycled lumber. And then I designed a sort of a stand-up bar that went all the way around it, so you could just drift into the place and stand and listen to music.
He would just jump right in and decide this will make it better.
In Berkeley, everyone likes to do everything by committee, and that's the sure road to mediocrity, you know. So you don't ask.
Walked up to the Santa's gate.
When musicians get on the freight stage, they create magic. And I've heard so many musicians that I've gotten to meet over the years talk about this being their favorite place to play. And they say they love it because the audience is so there for them.
The first freight was the one smoke-free environment and the one kind of listening room environment. And those two things have always remained true about the freight.
Well, there were a lot of people who played there in the early days. Jesse Fuller came in to play for the first time, who was a Bay Area legend. He played his harmonica and his guitar, and he's just a delightful performer.
Miriam Stafford, she was a wonderful singer and banjo player, and she played at the Freight quite a bit.
You never get it right.
Rosalie Sorrells is clearly my favorite musician. And she and Utah Phillips would play, but she was a storyteller.
Cut you down and end a life that starts.
One of my great loves in life to play music, and a blues player. I would just play it at home, and I just walked around the corner, and I guess one night the dog followed me, and it was open mic. I would play behind him. Everyone thought he was singing with me, but I was playing with him. That was the secret to a musical dog. The dog's name is enshrined in my restaurant, Zoot. That was the dog's name.
One of my very favorite bands was the Joy of Cooking. But the Joy of Cooking would come in and we'd dance in the kitchen. Of course, dancing wasn't permitted with our license, yeah. I was getting weary, and I decided it was time to get out. And I'd hoped that some of the community would be able to take over.
We have finished our concert, our fingers are so...
Freight was always kind of home turf for me when I was performing regularly. As a senior member of the community, I helped to organize a group of people who were playing at the Freight or playing folk music around the Bay Area or associated with one or another aspect of that scene. We formed an unofficial committee. We thought we should figure out how to work it out so we could buy the club from Nancy.
There was an outside couple. After they had it for a year or however long, then Bob and Debbie Wittig, who had helped me for years and years, they as a couple bought it.
And they were wonderful people who kept the Freight going for a couple years and kind of stewarded it into a place where the community finally got it together to create a nonprofit and buy the building at 1111 Addison and create what's called the Middle Freight. Maine Smith was the chair of the board at that time, and Abram Siegel was very involved. The first Freight had a small PA, but it was such a small place, you didn't have to be very amplified for people to hear you. The Middle Freight was a 200-seat, twice as big. So you definitely needed a sound system, and Meyer Sound Company came through and donated a sound system, and it was quite a good sound system for a club that size. It was really, really a wonderful place.
We did perform at the Freight. Larger audience, great PA, and I thought, I could love this place. You know, I really could.
And the lineups kept getting more and more interesting and diverse. Very different kinds of music. You know, women's music came in. The Freight had always had blues artists, but it started having African artists and more international artists. So it kind of slowly evolved to reflect all the music in the Bay Area and all the music in the country and the world.
We originally started to think about how to move the Freight from the Middle Freight to something, and our first thought was to actually build out at the Middle Freight.
2008 or so, the city of Berkeley had a big initiative to start this arts district in the downtown area, right where the Berkeley Rep is, where the jazz school is, Aurora Theater. And they really wanted Freight and Salvage to be a part of that. So they approached Steve Baker, who was running the Freight at that time. And he decided that it was time to move to a bigger space. And we were able to get community support to help pay for the building, and built out a building that had been an auto body shop.
They had all kinds of shows, I'm sure, to raise money. They had a lot of help from Warren Hellman, did a lot of contributing.
To have community involvement, lessons, kids, festivals, all the different stuff that developed over the years.
It got more back to itself, as far as I'm concerned, when it came here. I mean, having the classrooms, for instance, that alone set a tone. It reminded everybody that it was way more than just a music venue. It was education.
You can take a Freight class now from anywhere in the world. You can teach a Freight class from anywhere in the world. We do not have to be limited in our teachers.
It's been such a center for people who care about the community and nurturing creativity in the community.
I felt the need to do something for children because there was too much violence against kids that I was seeing. So I started to do these kids programs, but at the same time informing parents as to how they can help protect their children. I had people come and speak about how to keep kids safe, but that was all going on in the lobby. The kids were not necessarily exposed to all of that. They were inside having fun.
When I talk about the community, the Freight community, I have to talk about staff, volunteers, audience, artists, music lovers. It is just this huge community, educators, and every part of that makes this thing run.
I'm hoping that the future of the Freight continues, and that the community continues, and that the people that keep joining in, keep having the same kinds of feelings of family and support.
I love it. I absolutely love it. They did a spectacular job.
It's sort of astonishing that we have this in town and that this is a major music venue.
They have held the basic principles of the Freight together. It's run with a lot of volunteer help. I always feel totally welcome.
Now a tired conductor passes by. He takes my ticket with a sigh.
The other thing that I love about the Freight that has really expanded since we've moved here has been the variety and depth of the kinds of music. So that we truly are now doing what we said 20 years ago, but what we're doing now, which is promoting and presenting music from all traditions that are represented in the Bay Area, really reflecting the community.
Hello, I'm Clayton Shelvin, the Managing Director of Freight and Salvage. When our founder, Nancy Owens, opened the doors of the Freight in 1968, she couldn't possibly have known what would become of her idea. Nancy founded the Freight with the goodwill and the help of community and volunteers. That's still true to this day. What was once just a music coffee house and a gathering place for music enthusiasts, today, the Freight has evolved into an international music venue and an educational resource for adults and children. Our work not only exists in our venue, but expands to schools throughout the region. We help students connect with cultures from around the world through traditional music and inspire them to tap into their natural creativity. The Freight has survived because of community efforts passed down from generations. We will continue to survive with online, in-person, and at-school venues with the support of volunteers. And of course, we will continue to feature outstanding local, national, and international musicians on the Freight's stage. This is a call to action. to continue a community-supported freight and salvage. To learn more about becoming part of the freight and salvage community, visit us at thefreight.org.